Up next is senior CJ Dupaski, who wrestled 175 pounds for us this year. CJ was also one of our captains, as voted upon by his peers and his coaches. And, it was definitely a roller coaster season, I think, for CJ. Maybe not the season he was hoping for statistically, but it was definitely the season that, I think when he looks back many years from now, he's going to hold his head up high and be proud of everything that he's done on and off the mat. Little background on CJ. He came out to wrestle for the first time in eighth grade, along with Ethan. Um, you know, Picked up the sport pretty quick. Definitely were, with him and Ethan coming out and joining Brian at that point. Really happy to have those guys on board because they were hard workers. They came to our camps early on and they worked their butts off, and it was obviously tough in the beginning, but they never complained. CJ never put his head down. He just kept grinding and getting back to work. His freshman year, in fact, he had a pretty good season for a freshman. It was that was obviously the year where after we were affected by COVID, things were kind of a mess with how things were going. CJ actually got the opportunity that year to wrestle in the conference tournament, because we had a few people sitting out, and he actually ended up taking third at the conference tournament. So he was a third team all conference as a freshman, and so he took advantage of the opportunities. And for CJ, a lot of times, unfortunately, in his career, he had to, he was either behind somebody that was older or just had more experience, and how much that affected his growth, it's hard to tell, because the more mat time you get, obviously the better you're going to be. Even last year, CJ had a very successful junior season, where he had a winning record, but he was also behind a 100 match winner, so it was tough to get him as many matches as possible. I think he only had maybe 30 matches as a junior. He made the most of it by he still had a winning record and he placed at a lot of tournaments. But you know, unfortunately for CJ, at a lot of his career, he was behind some really good wrestlers. This year, he stepped up as a major leader for us. Um, he wasn't always the most vocal leader, but when he needed to be, when CJ had to put his foot down, people listened. And but also CJ at the same time was one of the most caring individuals on the team, and we'll kind of get into that later. On the season, CJ had 13 wins, six by pinfall and two decisions, 17 takedowns altogether, six total near falls, nine reversals, eight escapes. Again, statistically, it wasn't a great season for CJ, but in a lot of ways, he was also wrestling out of his weight class. He wanted to wrestle a little bit lower, but with the way the lineup was shaking, he kind of had to stay at 175. And to be honest, with CJ, he didn't care where he wrestled. He just wanted to get out there. And there were times when we had to ask CJ, like, would you mind bumping up to 190? Because we need somebody there. And CJ knew that, it'd be a much tougher matchup for him. It'd be very difficult. But he would do it to help the team and just to go out there and help as any way he could, even if he knew it was not gonna help him. He wanted to help the team first. And that, you know, obviously shows why he was definitely deserving of being a captain, but also why he was the one easy selection to be our Jacob Wasco Raider Award winner. Again, Jacob Wasco passed away 2 years ago, um, and was one of those kids who he was, maybe not the best wrestler on the team. But you know what? When he's out there, he's going to give you everything he's got. And off the mat, he's going to be that person that's going to make you laugh. He's going to, do everything he can to help you. If you need a ride, he's going to give you a ride. If you need some, somebody to sit in a chair and support you while you're wrestling, he's going to sit there and support you. And that's how CJ was this year. Any kid that needed a ride, CJ was there to help. Um, we had tournaments and somebody needed some extra support, CJ's there to do it. He would always be there for his teammates. He'd always be there, to help out even us. Like he always asked, like when we'd have cookouts or have the kids over for, um, you know, some breakfast or our Christmas party. He asked if we needed anything, and if he wanted to bring in extra stuff in case we needed more stuff because he didn't want us having to pay for everything. So and even when his career ended, when he lost at sectionals. He was there at district supporting the ones that made it on and supporting them any way he can, and as well as showing up to a lot of the girls stuff as well. Um, so CJ is one of those, you can't ask for a better captain or a better person. He does so much for others without worrying about himself. It really, you really want to see him succeed too. But unfortunately, he didn't have the season he wanted to. He was recognized because of his outstanding work in the classroom. He was also awarded the NWCA Academic All American. On his career, CJ did earn his fourth year Letterman, which he earned his coach's award for that. He had 46 wins, 25 pins, 2 decisions, 55 takedowns, 24 total near falls, 22 reversals, and 30 escapes. He's one-time All Conference, being third team in 2021. He was a one-time sectional placer, a one-time Jacob Wasco Raider Award winner, and a two-time NWCA Academic All American. You know, all the accomplishments that CJ had on the mat paled in comparison to everything he does off the mat. He's an amazing athlete. He was a great football player. He's a great wrestler. He's a great in track. But most importantly, he's a great individual. And talking with him, I know he wants to go into welding and he's got plans on that. And I'm really glad too, because with the Jacob Wasco Award comes a scholarship, and he can use that to help pay for his trade schooling that he's going to need for that. And I'm so excited for the future for CJ, because he's such an amazing young man. Um, as I said, with all these seniors, it's going to be so tough to see them go, and I really hope they come back, because they just brighten up the room whenever they're around, and it's always great to have them around. I can't thank CJ enough, because so many times, like I said, he put the team ahead of himself, and he didn't have to do that. He could have said, "No, I'm not bumping up. I want to stay at 175. I want to win this match here," but he did it to help the team. He didn't have to show up to watch the JV kids wrestle at a tournament, or to come cheer on the guys that made it to district or state, but he wanted to. He wanted to be there for his teammates, for his brothers. So that, I think, shows the more character of the person than anything he would ever done on the mat. And to be honest, CJ doesn't give himself enough credit, but he was a very good wrestler. The toughest thing, I think, with wrestling is transitioning what you do in the practice room onto the mat in a match. Watching CJ in the practice room was a completely different wrestler than on the mat. And the hardest thing to do is to get a wrestler to do what they do in the practice room, because it's easy in the practice room, but it's so hard on the mat. And unfortunately, that's something that some wrestlers, they never can get. And CJ, unfortunately, just couldn't get that mental aspect. And, you know, it is what it is. And I don't, it's not something that he should be blaming himself for or anyone else. It just happens. And there's a lot of wrestlers that go through their careers with that. But, CJ should never put himself down as a wrestler, because he was an amazing wrestler. And there were times on the mats where we'd seen that in our home dual meet at senior night. He had an amazing match that, went down to the wire, and he pulled it off. And that's where we kind of saw that some of that coming around, where he just wasn't thinking, he was just reacting. And when he does that, he was an amazing wrestler. But again, with CJ, such a great person and a great young man. And I'm so excited for his future and to see what he does. I hope he, visits us sometime, because he's always a great person to have around. But, thank you so much for the last 4 years, CJ, and we wish you the best of luck.